Welcome to this two-part lectures on the sustainable development of tribal studies. The first part will be on the present approaches being undertaken in India for its tribes. I am Professor K.R. Srivatsan, a professor who has retired from IIT Kanpur. Earlier I was with as Pro-Vice Chancellor of Indira Gandhi National Open University, and I was a founding director of the Indian Institute of Information Technology and Management in Kerala, and have done several other roles. Currently, I am a senior fellow of the Odisha State Open University. Now, coming back to the topic, these two-part lectures on sustainable development of tribal communities is being delivered as part of a course on tribal studies under the National Resource Center for Tribal Studies in the Sambalpur University. If we take a look at the profile of India's tribal population and the kind of challenges we face in their socio-economic development, firstly, India has very diverse and also the world's largest proportion of the Adivasis, Aboriginals and tribes, people who are native to the soil of India. Under 2011 census, there are 104 million tribal people in India. They live in about 573 different communities, each having distinct name, and they are all recognized as scheduled tribes under India's constitution. The Government of India has a Ministry for Tribal Affairs. It constituted the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes that supports many affirmative programs and livelihood support programs for the scheduled tribe communities. Now, what are the challenges in their socio-economic development? The tribes cannot be uniformly of one kind. They are very diverse. They live in different geographic regions, different agroclimatic regions, and there are also types of tribes. In the sense, there are tribes with things, but there are also primitive, vulnerable tribes who are also recognized under the Indian Constitution. Typically, they live in the larger tribes live in regions which are typically about the size of a block in a district, and they are often called notified areas. And of course, there are states, particularly if you take Northeast, or states which are dominant in tribal populations like Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, and parts of Bengal, and so on. There are a lot of notified areas. If you take a state like Nagaland, it's almost entirely tribal areas. And these notified areas are being done so that the land ownership cannot be encroached by any other part of the main population. Any development therein needs the approval of the local tribal community. These small regions in which they live, which are called notified areas, they are often hilly, forest lands, areas that are poor for normal agricultural or pastoral type of life. And since they descend from ancient practices, they are very ancient people of this country, they had their own past practices like Podu cultivation type, which is kind of slash and burn and cultivate agriculture, which becomes difficult to sustain with the highly populated Indian mainland civilization. So we have to give them alternate livelihood or alternate technology-assisted agriculture to ensure their socio-economic development is well taken care. Now, quite a few of tribes are also now scattering or migrating to urban areas in search of livelihood and educational opportunities. They are often found in urban, small towns and in different areas. So we have to take care of those people also who are migrant part of the tribal population. Now, if you look at the land ownership, good agricultural land has been taken over by the mainstream population. So they have to cultivate or live off agriculturally, so to say, the tribals in hilly, slopy or forest terrains. Government at the center, as well as the various state governments, have taken a number of measures for their welfare, livelihood, and to the extent possible maximizing the preservation of their culture, like crafts and their own cultural expressions, their languages which are often oral and do not have any alphabet or written script. Many of the tribals, although they are oral, they have taken to the local scripts for writing and other purposes. And often for livelihood, they have been given rights over the minor forest produce, and the marketing is done on their behalf by identified entities set up by the government. Nurturing their crafts has been done to the extent possible. Much more has to be done. For example, with modern IT, media, etc., their oral and other culture also can be captured and made available. Like in Rajasthan or Kerala, the native people, the local people are having their own culture, which also is adapted to the promotion of tourism there. Now, tourism can be a very good livelihood provided we ensure the culture is also nurtured along with the tourism development taken up under the tribal areas. There are several legal and administrative protection issues addressed by the government on tribal land and various rights, particularly in the notified tribal areas. And the rights to the various rights that are applicable that go with the being a member of the scheduled tribe are also protected when they migrate in various ways. Okay. Now, what are the issues related to the tribal prosperity? Firstly, let us remember the diversity in the tribal population. Now, there is a site which I found was quite informative, although it is meant for so to say, for preparation of competitive exams. It is called clearias.com, Major Tribes in India. It is quite informative. There are larger sized tribes and also small ones which are called primitive and vulnerable tribes because their population is subcritical to ensure the future in a healthy way. They may not be, the PVTs or primitively vulnerable tribes may not scale to support sustaining level of socioeconomics. So we have to see how they will adapt while even preserving their certain culture, while they live amidst a larger rural population in their surroundings. Now, you may see the Ministry of Tribal Affairs notification called Schemes Launched by the Ministry of Tribal Affairs for the Welfare of Primitive and Vulnerable Tribes. It is available over the internet. It's one of the more recent documents on this. Now, we need different strategies, but I am going to give an approach where the two strategies can be integrated in different ways. Sustainable development implies sustainable socio-economic development, and that means whatever is being, suppose they do, for example, some agricultural cropping, it should become sustainable, means not only sustainability in the production sense, that profitability also has to be assured, that they must be able to market the produce. So profitability, sustainability and productivity, because the per capita, how much you can produce, maximize that output, all these three have to be taken care when we talk about sustainable development. There are many strategies. Now recently government has introduced, after 2000 particularly, several programs on skilling of the local tribes, particularly self-help groups, the women among the crafts tribes, to nurture their crafts and see the product markets for their products and so on. I've seen in Odisha, being in Odisha, the government has done human service in marketing their produce through several exhibitions in varieties of towns and various other things, and often the agricultural produce from them are quite popular among the common public, and so they command a good market in addition to other handicrafts. Of course, the handicrafts are also getting promoted, but okay, it may do for certain population, but certain segments may be left out, so we have to study these things. So training of self-help groups, promotion of micro, small, medium enterprises. There are concepts like scheduled tribe hubs, that is some kind of productivity where they can, which is conducive for their productivity of their crafts and other value-added products they can do in the community blocks, enhancing marketing opportunities, and these are all being addressed in today's government. So how do we establish further and make sure these become sustainable? That's the real challenge. I'll give some examples of certain ongoing schemes. There are several programs. These programs may be broadly classified under the state governments, some funded under the central governments, and there are also various internationally funded organizations like the United Nations, UNDP, and certain countries also do certain development funds. They are often operated through NGOs as well as certain corporate social responsibilities. They are all in the field with certain good results. In some of them, there are vast scopes of improvement. Although I have not put a PowerPoint, the presentation on it, I'll show positive ones as well as one or two ones which need further improvement. One example is the UNDP state level support to livelihood promotion strategies in Jharkhand. They are mostly centered around introducing drip irrigation for cultivation of vegetables by tribal communities. Similar one by Tata Steel in Keonjhar district of Odisha has been very successful. The cost of drip irrigation implementation in the Tata Steel project at least has some numbers. It is about 1 lakh rupees per acre it comes to, but the productivity has increased threefold of the quality. Quality is important because it gets better market, and so they get better profitability in return. So this sustainability, productivity, profitability, all three issues are addressed under the Tata Steel, and the return on investment of this 1 lakh rupees or so is practically such that within 3 years the cost of investment is very well covered, which means this is a very bankable proposition by any means. The ICAR NRI initiative called Improving Livelihood and Doubling of Income of Farmers in Kandhamal district. Kandhamal district is predominantly a tribal district, and recently we can see in Bhubaneswar market a lot of products coming from this initiative being sold, particularly fruits have been grown in extensively, and they have become very popular here in the neighborhood urban areas. Now let us go further. Here is another example. It is called Johar Pariyojana. Johar is an acronym for Jharkhand Opportunities for Harnessing Rural Development, and it is how do we extend to tribal areas. It is predominantly in the tribal areas. There is a YouTube available. I have given the link in this, and you can see a tribal lady smiling and showing the vegetables, again involving drip irrigation and other things. There is a sustainable livelihood for using the farm inputs and skills for cultivation. Whole community's prosperity has been broadly assured. I have given another link on the UNDP initiatives, particularly in the Jharkhand area. Now, You can see another program again funded by UNDP or one of the CSR on harnessing rural development through solar power. This is one of the most promising initiative in my view, mainly because solar is after all natural and it belongs to the region. Why not use? And today solar power, solar panels and associated technologies are rapidly falling in cost, and their efficiency is also growing. So one of the key thing is we have to change the policy in solar energy if we have to make it more sustainable. That is, maximize the use of solar power locally generated for local value added activities. That should be a strategy we need, and it is not the way solar power is normally thought about, but the tribal development particularly is highlighting this issue. Tata Steel with CINI, which is a NGO in Odisha, has done this. So let us go ahead. How do we bring this about? So in summary, if you look at the ongoing development, India's tribal populations are diverse. The largest tribes and those of PVTs need different strategies. PVTs are primitive and vulnerable tribes. For their socio-economic development, the central and state governments have many schemes, and there are also many by United Nations Development Program, other UN organizations, and certain countries involved in through NGOs, CSRs, and so on. And yet, there is one thing that I may highlight, even though I have not put it in my presentation, is that they don't look at sustainability in a holistic manner when we address an entire community. They are looking at a sustainable agricultural activity, for sure. Maybe tomorrow, for example, the same solar power can be used to purify water and give clean drinking water supply to these people. Now, the healthcare probably requires telemedicine, Wi-Fi, internet connectivity. They can also be combined by this. So now if you look at the various needs of a community, and if you view it integrally, like healthcare, education, besides agriculture, crafts and various things together, there is a very different perspective that can emerge